Right now in South Korea, the social contract has not just been breached, it has been liquidated for parts. To understand the current state of the dating market, one must look at a 20-year timeline of escalating hostilities. Starting from the early internet bulletin boards and culminating in the total psychological warfare we see today. The intelligence suggests that this is no longer a matter of romance, but a cold calculation of biological assets and reproductive deadlines. For 2 decades, the tension has simmered, moving through the escape from the corset protest where traditional aesthetic standards were discarded, and into the legalistic era of the Misi Labor Agreement and the Workplace Bullying 119 initiatives. These movements were designed to protect, but they effectively sanitized the workplace to the point where gendered interaction became a high-risk liability. To quantify this chaos, specialists from Monash University and the Air Force were brought in to analyze the data. Their findings confirm a total breakdown in communication. The latest data point is a viral manifesto issued by a 34-year-old male, a subject in his prime marriageable bracket, who has executed a strategic pivot. After navigating dozens of blind dates, he has established what he calls the 32-year-old hard cap. His logic is purely mathematical. He calculates that a woman aged 32 requires 1 year for dating and wedding preparation, followed by 1 year for the honeymoon and initial marriage phase. This brings her to 34. At 34, she is exactly 12 months away from the clinical definition of geriatric pregnancy, which begins at age 35. The subject refuses to gamble his genetic legacy on a 35-year-old biological cliff. He has declared that even if he reaches the age of 40 or 50, his criteria will remain static. To him, marriage without children is merely playing with fire, a colloquialism for casual dating that holds no institutional or evolutionary purpose. He would rather remain perpetually single than invest his resources into what he deems a high-risk asset. This is the clinical justification driving the market shift. While individual health varies, the medical reality of chromosomal abnormalities and infertility after 35 has been weaponized as a primary filter. Men are now seeking younger partners not out of preference but as a perceived safety mechanism against biological failure. The response from the female demographic has been equally clinical and cold. They have labeled this the beggar logic. The argument is that the 34-year-old man demanding a 20-something woman is equivalent to a homeless individual demanding a 5-course meal. At a luxury establishment, he has the desire, but he lacks the currency or the market value to afford the entry price. The conflict has now moved to the cellular level. Opponents of the 32-year-old cap have introduced the rotten seed argument. They claim that while women's eggs have a finite shelf life, men's sperm undergoes significant genetic degradation by the mid-30s. Leading to lower intelligence scores and increased neurodevelopmental risks in offspring. This has led to the infamous bread factory analogy. Pro-male advocates argue that men are essentially bread factories, capable of producing fresh product daily, whereas women are born with their entire supply, making them 30-year-old loaves sitting on a shelf. The counter-argument is that a 34-year-old factory is likely crumbling and producing contaminated goods regardless of how fresh the individual batch seems. As these domestic negotiations reach a total stalemate, we are seeing the rise of the international escape hatch. If local women in their 20s refuse men in their 30s, and local men in their 30s refuse women in their 30s, the men look towards Southeast Asia to secure younger reproductive assets. This is biological globalism in its purest form, a way to bypass the local inflation of dating costs. The result is a total stasis. Men are opting for strategic age gap dating or international outsourcing, while women are opting for defiant singlehood, refusing to be measured by a biological metric they find insulting. Now, let us look at the absolute state of this wreckage. You have a generation of activists who spent years nuking their own sanctuary and now they are surprised that the ground is radioactive. Look at the irony of the spec monster. You spent 30 years building a resume, stacking certificates and grinding for a corporate title, only to find out that the marriage market does not care about your middle management status. To the man looking for a legacy, your MBA is a depreciating asset if your ovaries are on a timer. It is the ruthless truth of the reproductive meat grinder. These men are looking at you like a high-stakes bet with a damaged outcome. They call it the geriatric gamble, and you, the 34-year-old man with the manifesto, you are not a hero. You are a liquidator. You are treating marriage like a Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing, where you try to salvage what is left of your youth by importing a 20-year-old who barely speaks your language. The honey-sucking generation has finally hit the wall. You thought you could delay adulthood forever, hiding behind the ugly sisterhood's revenge, telling yourselves that age is just a number. But biology does not read your blog posts. It does not care about your social media filters. The 32-year-old Iron Curtain has dropped, and on one side you have the viable wives, and on the other you have the dated girlfriends who are mathematically irrelevant to the men they actually want. It is a genetic liquidation sale. Everyone is settling for partners they despise just to beat the 35-year-old biological bankruptcy. You have women using DNA repair supremacy arguments, claiming a young egg can fix a man's stale sperm, while the men are busy calculating the cost of fertility like it is a commodity on the stock exchange. The hypocrisy is delicious. You have the shortcut seekers, the people who wanted the lifestyle of a power couple without the biological reality of the grind path. Now you are facing a liquidity crisis in the mating market. The domestic social contract is dead because no one wants to pay the price of entry. The men think their value increases with their salary, failing to realize they are aging outsiders to the 20-year-olds they covet. The women think their professional status hedges against their biological deadline, failing to realize that the buyers in this market do not value your career over your capacity to produce a healthy heir. This is not a dating crisis. This is reproductive terrorism. Both sides are holding the future hostage. The man setting an age quota is just trying to protect his genetic legacy from the inflation of late-stage pregnancy risks, while the women are using cellular degradation as a slur to devalue the very men they expect to provide for them. It is a negative feedback loop of mutual destruction. You have created a system where the cost of marriage is total perfection, a standard that human biology simply cannot sustain in an urbanized, high-pressure society. So you look for the escape hatch, you look for the international arbitrage because the cost of fertility at home is too high. You are effectively breaking the strike of the local market by importing cheaper labor. It is cold, it is ugly, and it is the only logical conclusion when you treat a human relationship like a factory logistics problem. The soul has been stripped away and replaced with quality control metrics. You are not looking for a partner, you are looking for an incubator with a warranty. And you are not looking for a husband, you are looking for a resource tap with fresh DAA. The mating market has had a hard landing and there are no survivors. Only participants in a genetic war where the only way to win is to stop playing. Fuel the truth at Dating in Korea. Support the structure. Stay safe in the lounge.